Thank you for tuning in to the Doing Business with God podcast.
Hey, you. Yes, you. I am your host, Michi Renee.
It is Michi's passion to help you live your best life and do business God's way. Michi will be talking about entrepreneurship, manifestation, monetization, mindset, beliefs, starting and growing a business, nonprofit, or ministry, all while serving God. So welcome to My Daddy's Business. It's time for the show. It's the Doing Business with God podcast with your host, Michi Renee.
Welcome back to another episode of the Doing Business with God podcast. I have with me today Ms. Brenda Sawyer, and you guys are in for a treat today. So we're just going to go ahead and get right into it. Brenda Sawyer was born and raised in New York City and currently resides in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. She is a woman of God who has a strong spiritual foundation and believes that she can do all things through Christ who strengthens her. As a young child, Brenda has always had a passion for teaching and imparting knowledge. After graduating from Hunter College with a dual major in psychology and early childhood education, Brenda taught elementary school for 26 years for the school district of Pennsylvania. Brenda holds a second master's degree in elementary education from Cabrini College. In addition to being a published author of encouraging words for the mind, spirit, and soul, she is also the founder and CEO of Girls Walking with Integrity, Empowering for Destiny, a Christian mentoring ministry empowering young ladies between the ages of 8 and 18 to make a transformation into women that God has called them to be through biblical principles and teachings. Welcome to the Doing Business with God podcast, Ms. Sawyer. We are so glad to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. So let's go. Let's just jump right into it. I visited your website, saw all of your books. You are quite an accomplished lady. My goodness.
Whatever God is telling me to do, that's what I try to do. So, I give it all to Him. He gets the glory. But thank you so much for that. And I give God the honor for that.
Yes. So let's just jump into it. So how did you go about writing? What is it? You have 7 books?
Well, okay, most of them are collaborations. The first book that you mentioned is Encouraging Words for the Mind, Spirit, and Soul. That is my first book, and it's also in Spanish. Spanish version, I will read it to you. It's called Palabras de Aliento para la Mente, Espíritu y Alma. They're both on Amazon, so I have a Spanish version of the Encouraging Words for the Mind, Spirit, and Soul. The rest are collaborations through anthologies, so those are those books that I'm in also.
Okay, awesome. But still, even though they're anthologies, you've been quite a lot of books. So let's talk about the book that you yourself authored. What is that book about and how did it come about?
The book, basically, Encouraging Words for the Mind, Spirit, and Soul, is about encouraging words. That's what it's saying, what it's stating, to give someone who needs encouragement, some encouragement, as we all need, especially around this time. In this season, we all could stand for some encouragement, some encouraging words. So, and the Bible does tell us that we need to encourage each other. So as I was writing the book, I was encouraging myself as well as, encouraging others. But the Encouraging Words for the Mind, Spirit, and Soul book came about by the group Girls Walking with Integrity, Empowering for Destiny. And that's on Facebook, which is basically a platform where we use to encourage people. And from a lot of the posts that I put on there, that's what the book is comprised of. A lot of the posts that I put on Girls Walking with Integrity, all the posts over the years that I put on. So it's basically a collection of devotions taken from Girls Walking with Integrity, Empowering for Destiny. And that is basically to inspire and encourage you in your daily walk with Christ. So that's how that book came about.
Okay, awesome. And the Girls Walking with Integrity, is that a nonprofit organization or what exactly is Girls Walking with Integrity? Because I can honestly say, when my daughter was younger in the age range that you served, this would have been something amazing to be a part of for the girls between the ages of 8 and 18. Guys, make sure you visit girlswalkingwithintegrity.com. Does have a website all about that. So how did that come about?
Well, that came about when I used to teach school. Of course, you know that almost 26 years, well, almost 30 years basically. And, when you teach the children, you see all sorts of different things and how children are being brought up these days, and especially our young women and our young men as well, but the young ladies. ladies. So I wanted to try to give them, some encouragement as to, how do we dress? How do we speak? How do we just act as young ladies, And that's basically how that came about. Now, it is not a nonprofit yet, I say, but sometimes we do go out and we do events to, for our young ladies, and we'll do that. But right now, it is a platform on Facebook where people can come and they can, give their encouraging words or their scriptures or what have you. But as I say, not yet, because I don't know what God, what God has planned for that. But basically, that's what Girls Walking with Integrity is for. Our mission statement basically is to empower the young women to become all that God has called them to be, basically. And that's prayer, Bible study, character building, friendships, workshops and organization activities and community services and outreach. Our vision basically is to work together with the parents as a coalition, and community leaders. And we do have our workshops, and this is to empower and mentor our young women to reach their destiny for posterity. That's like a little word that little phrase that I coined, reaching their posterity, reaching your destiny for posterity. Our core values for Girls Walking with Integrity and Empowering for Destiny comes from the word faith. It is without faith impossible to please God. The core values, the F stands for follow Christ with a passion. A stands for always love one another. I stands for increase in God's word. T stands for teach one, reach one. And the H is for have compassion for those in need. So this is where, Girls Walking with Integrity and Empowering for Destiny originated. It's 501c yet, not a 501c3 yet.
I love your core values using the acronym of faith. I absolutely love that. I looked at your website for that for Girls Walking with Integrity, and I love what you are doing there. I could absolutely see that as a nonprofit if God sees fit to make it one. It is a great addition to the community because, that old saying, it takes a village, really does. And we have gotten away from that in society. There's no more, communities looking out for kids anymore.
That's right.
And that's kind of one of the things of the old I wish we could go back and pick up. What are your thoughts as it relates to that?
I agree 100%. We do need to, it does take a village to raise, a child. And I go back to the scripture, Proverbs 22:6 says that when you train up a child, he will not depart from it as he grows older. So you're going to train up a child in the way he should go. So when he's older, he won't depart from it. So that's what I stand by too. That's one of the scriptures that, we stand by. Basically what you're saying is it does take a village to raise a child. Nowadays, sometimes to raise the children, get them off to school, maybe even do virtual learning at this time, but we don't know. So we don't know, the households, each household, what each child is experiencing, but we do know that in this day and age, especially in the 21st century, it seems like, I don't want to say this because I want to speak positively, but we don't want to go backwards. We want to move forward, and especially me being, I'm always going to be an educator, and I stand on that platform, but as a teacher, I feel that, I don't know, the children are not learning a lot of the things that they should be learning. And it goes back to, I always say that, children starts from home, okay, and with that village you're talking about as well, in conjunction with the home. So the home's going to teach the child before the child goes to school. That's how I was taught. I was, born and raised in New York, she said, and I was taught that, the right from wrongs. I was taught the morals, and you're not going to expect your schools to teach you or teach your child morals and right from wrongs. This is why we have a lot of the things and conflicts that we have today, because we're not teaching that. It doesn't matter anymore. Anything goes. So basically now it's babies having babies, young parents who basically need to have parenting classes for these parents because they just don't know. They don't know. And, it's really not their fault, but, it's the circumstances that they find themselves in. But we need to teach our young people how to live and not just how to thrive or survive, but to thrive in this society. And so we need to teach them that. And they don't know a lot of the things. Some of the children, I don't think, are growing up like that. It's, they're just doing, whatever they choose to do. Parents are allowing them to do that. They want to become their friends more so than their parents. They don't have, some of them, I'm not saying all, some of them don't have the guidelines or parameters that they need to have as children, So this is what I see as a problem. It needs to go back to the home, and then, our churches too get involved with the home training, and then our schools. We can't expect our schools to do all of the things that we need to do, okay? We really can't, because they're not going to teach them morals, and unless it's probably a Christian school that you're sending your child to. So we have to start first in our home. That's where it starts. And it's where it goes back to what you just said. It takes a village because everybody in the neighborhood, could be your parent. It's not like, oh, you're not my mom, you can't tell me what to do. But everybody in your neighborhood, including your family, your aunts, your uncles, your grandparents, all of those people, it took a village to raise that child in the community to be the type of person that they're supposed to be. Life skills, having life skills. I don't feel myself that some of our children have the life skills that they need. I didn't say all, but some. You may find some. For example, teaching. I saw that children didn't even know what the needle and thread was. Unfortunately, it's like, well, how do you thread this needle? They're not brought up in that time where you have to sew. They have sewing machines or they, just buy the clothes or what have you. But that's what I see. They didn't know a lot about that. So I kind of incorporated a sewing class, not that it was in the curriculum, but, incorporated that in my reading, and we did sequences, what happens now, what happens next. And I kind of like taught a little sewing lesson and they were all gravitated to it, even the boys, because they didn't know, like, well, how do you thread this needle? How do you sew? So I actually did that as a reading lesson and they really loved it. So that's what I was all about in my classroom. I kind of just, taught the way I, spontaneously going along with the curriculum, but still going, also outside the box a little bit, going outside of the box a little bit. I teach like that. Yeah.
Awesome. We definitely need more amazing teachers like you were in the school system. It just seems like nowadays people are just there for a paycheck. They're not really there to teach and help the kids.
We hope that you are enjoying this episode. If you would like to be a guest, check the show notes for all the details. Let's get back to the Doing Business with God podcast with Michi Renee.
So did you always know you wanted to be a teacher or how did that?
Most definitely. Most definitely. Yes, I was 5 years old and I always wanted to play school. I was the teacher. So I always knew that I wanted to be a teacher at 5 years old. I can say that because I know we had, doctors and all sorts of, people in our family that are lawyers. And, my parents always try to persuade me, oh, don't you want to be a lawyer? Don't you want to be a doctor? No, I want to be a teacher. And I always said that. And that's what I aspired to be. And that's basically what I became. I wanted to be actually the best teacher that I could be. For some reason, I don't know, we had teachers in our schools who weren't as nice and who weren't, I don't want, it's kind of difficult to say it because they just seemed like they didn't care about what we learned, It was like, you all are probably not going to make it because, you're not learning, you probably can't learn, you probably won't even be able to get a job. And I was shocked, but, this is what happens. But, my